Before we get started, our chairman, Kevin Vaughn, has come down with a stomach virus, and so let's keep him in our prayers, and because stomach viruses are no fun, and we've all experienced them. So again, let's. So you're gonna have to bear with me today. So I'll take all the guidance I can get. I'm Rush Bricken, the vice chair. So we're going to do our best to move along on some things. Before we get started, any personal orders? Starting with Jeff. Sorry, Representative Burkhart.
Yeah, you're good. I see lots of sheriffs
All
and
right,
police.
first of all, we better take a roll. How's that?
Okay.
All right. I got to even sign in. I get in? All right. Yay. All right. I'm in finally. Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll?
Mr. Chairman, you have 21 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Now we're officially in order, I hope. All right. Representative Burkhart, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I see the sheriff and police officers out in the audience today. I want to welcome all of them into our meeting. We appreciate everything y'all do for us and keeping us safe. Thank y'all for being here.
Would all the sheriffs please stand up so we can officially see you up? All right. Thank you for your service. All right. Representative Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I have a shadow today, Mackenzie Kirkland. If she'd please stand. And she's here to learn more about our government and how it works. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Lynn.
I know we already recognize the sheriffs, but Representative Hale, Representative Boyd, and I are so proud to have our sheriff, Robert Bryan, here. He is a wonderful man, and thank you for being here today, Sheriff.
Representative Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I just wanted to take a second to welcome our sheriff, Sheriff Spangler, Representative Lafferty, and I. And some of you know Sheriff Spangler, he is a hero in Knox County, not because of the work he does, but because of him overcoming a fierce battle with cancer. He is a fighter. He is a leader. He is a man of principle, a man of faith. And so we're so thankful for him, so thankful for his recovery. Sheriff, we're thankful for you, so thankful for your health, and thank you for being here.
Next, Representative Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I know we've recognized a wonderful group of law enforcement officers, but I'm a little prejudiced. I don't see my sheriff out there, Austin Garrett. He's probably holding a press conference somewhere and a photo op. But we do have the man who runs the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, and I want to recognize Spencer Daniel, Chief Deputy. Thank you, Spencer.
Representative Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too would like to represent my Lincoln County Sheriff, Toll Malone. Please stand, Toll.
And hey, Representative Darby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We want to welcome a warm welcome here to our Carroll County Sheriff, mine and Chairman Brock Martins, and he does a great job there in Carroll County, Mr. Andy Dixon.
I think we're good. Before we get, Representative Hardaway.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. First, I want to give my condolences to Spencer Daniel for his last day on the job after that introduction he had. Just joking, sir. I don't know anything. But I want to make sure that Leader Camper and I give a shout out to our sheriff, Bonner, Floyd Bonner. He's not in the room right now because he's out there fighting crime. So while he's delivering justice, we still want to recognize him for the great service that he brings to Shelby County. Thank you, Chairman.
I think all the personal orders have been recognized. I have one. I would like to recognize my shadow today, a young man from Manchester, Tennessee, Andrew Silvertooth, a great family from Coffee County. So Andrew, would you stand up? Okay. All right, I think we're going to get started. We're going to skip around a little bit and get some hopefully easy lifting bills out of the way. And so we're going to start off, I think, Representative McCallum, would you be willing to? That's item number 5 on your calendar. We have a motion and a second. I think the bill is in proper order. So would you explain your bill?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much, members. I, for one, am thankful that I don't have a warrant out for my arrest today in this room. Essentially, what House Bill 974 does is it's a bill that deals with antique auto auctions. It creates an exception for one particular antique auto auction over one weekend at a single location, specifically the Nashville Super Speedway in Wilson County. The event would be much more than just an auction itself, drawing an estimated attendance of 20. Oh, sir, sorry.
I've been pointed out, we have an amendment traveling on that bill. If you would please tell me what that amendment is, we can get it on the bill.
Yes, sir. It is drafting code 3454.
We have a motion and a second. Without objection, all in favor of putting that amendment on the bill? The amendment there is on the bill. There, keep going.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members, as I was saying, it will bring in an estimated attendance of 20,000 people, generating over $1 million in estimated sales tax revenue. It will be televised nationally. The particular auto auction is also partnering with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and a portion of the proceeds will be going to support that charity. With all that said, I stand ready for questions, and Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, are we ready to vote on the bill? Let's, Representative McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I did leave out, the bill does have an $800 fiscal note on that. We're having fiscal review take another gander at it. We don't think that that actually is the case, and I've been told that it is actually, the fiscal note is going to be coming off. So just wanted to make that clear as well.
Best of luck. We already have. Yeah, we already voted on the amendment. All right, Madam Clerk, would you open the board for voting? Has everybody voted? Anybody wants to change their vote? If not, Madam Clerk, close the voting and announce the results.
Mr. Chairman, you have 21 ayes, 0 noes.
All right. The bill passes, since I guess it's going to finance temporarily.
Yes, sir.
And if it, best of luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Y'all have a great morning.
All right, Representative Martin, would you like to cover your bill, number 6 on the calendar? We have a motion and a second. Are there any amendments on this bill?
No, sir.
Great. All right, we have a motion and second, and the bill's in proper order. Would you now explain your bill?
Mr. Chairman, I have 3 bills with me. I'm assuming we're talking about Bill 303.
That is correct.
Okay. This legislation allows a one-time antique and unique auto auction for the 6th annual Chattanooga Motor Car Festival being held October 17th through the 19th. Approximately 12,000 individuals attended the festival last year, and it resulted in a total of $12.3 million in sales. Event organizers have contributed significant funding to the Neuroscience Center at CHI Memorial and the Neuroscience Center Science Innovation Foundation since the festival beginning. And Mr. Chairman, we do not have any physical note.
That's great. All right. Any questions to the representative? I have Representative Moon first.
Mr. Chairman, I'll pass for Representative Hardaway.
All right. Representative Hardaway.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And I'm probably going after the same thing Moon was. We don't have a physical note, you said?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Moon now. See,
Representative Moon, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move previous question.
I like it. All right, we have a question on the bill. No objections. Let's call the vote. Madam Clerk, would you open the board for the vote? Has everyone voted? If anyone wants to change their vote? If not, close the vote and announce the results.
Mr. Chairman, you have 22 ayes, 0 noes.
The bill passes. I assume it goes on to calendar rules. Okay. Is that correct, calendar rules? There you go. You want to carry your 2 other bills there?
Would love to.
All right, bill number 7. Bill, would you? Got a motion and a second. Any amendments on the bill? Have we just gavelled the last one in? All right, good. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and second on this bill. Would you now please explain your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we on House Bill 459?
We are.
Okay, thank you. It's not often that I have 3 bills at one time, so pardon me for getting a little bit confused. This bill was brought to me by the Secretary of State, and what it does is it seeks to give the Secretary of State the power to dissolve a business from a foreign adversary that is acting inappropriately in the state of Tennessee. Where this came from was that the federal government, the FBI, came to the state of Wyoming and said, look, there's a shell company that's operated here by North Korea. And what they're doing is they are pretending to be a business operating in Wyoming, but literally what they're doing is they're using people overseas. They're creating money that is funding their weapons of mass destruction program. And so what this does is it makes it available where the Secretary of State can dissolve a company that is from one of our foreign adversaries. HB 459 grants the Tennessee Secretary of State the limited authority to dissolve a business owned or controlled by a foreign adversary as defined by the Federal Secretary of Commerce. And the bill also standardizes the language for the Secretary of State to dissolve these entities across all business types. And I stand ready to answer questions. And I also have Michael Harmon here with the Secretary of State's office, who's legal counsel there, if we have to get into some technical things.
All right. Any questions on the bill? Representative Marsh?
I'm looking for your question.
All right. There's a question on the bill. Any objections? All right. We'll start with Representative Hardaway.
You were objecting.
I was just objecting.
Oh.
We have 3 objections, Chair.
I'll withdraw.
Okay. He's withdraw the question, so there are questions on the bill. Representative Camper? Okay, Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we go out of session to hear from Secretary of State?
Is any objections to going out of session? Is there somebody from the Secretary of State office here?
Yes.
Okay. If no objections, we'll go out of session and hear the Secretary of State. Please state your name and.
Michael Harmon, General Counsel, Secretary of State's Office.
All right. You're not here to testify, so Representative Clements, would you ask the questions to the Secretary of State's?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. 2 questions. So again, we covered this a little bit in the subcommittee, but how are we going to figure out if they're using shell companies as to, they use multiple entities and set up these LLCs? How is the Secretary of State's office going to identify this?
Again, Michael Harm.
Yeah.
The intent here is where other governmental entities, and it's most likely going to be the federal government like we saw in Wyoming, where the FBI and the Department of Justice came in and identified these, or there may be something from the Tennessee Attorney General's office, or there may be something external as well. There's not an intent to go through every single business that we have and try to identify specific instances inside the current filings.
And so this says that if a country is identified as a foreign adversary by the Department of Commerce, is that correct?
The Secretary of the Department of Commerce, yes.
By the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. Wouldn't the Department of State identify foreign adversaries, or how are we defining foreign adversary? Because right now we consider, for some reason, Canada an adversary. So I'm a little concerned about who we're identifying as foreign adversaries for our national security that this Department of State would do versus the Department of Commerce for whatever reason that an administration chooses.
The bill identifies 15 CFR 791.4 subsection A as the place to look for the foreign adversaries. That's under the Department of Commerce. Given that this is with businesses, we thought that was the appropriate place to look. And if I may, there are 6 entities currently listed in that section of the Foreign Register.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that that is clearly defined and that we're not just arbitrarily picking foreign adversaries, or just because, we want to decide that a country is adversarial to the United States for some random reason for the purpose of tariffs or otherwise, that the state of Tennessee is not punishing them and reducing our businesses and our local economy's ability to trade or do business with these entities. That's my chief concern. Thank you.
Any other questions for our guests? If not, we'll go back into session. We'll go. All right. Thank you, Representative. All right, we're back in the session. Any other questions for our sponsor? If not, are we ready to vote? If seeing none, let's all get the board ready for vote, and please cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Madam Clerk, will you close the vote and announce the total?
Mr. Chairman, you have 22 ayes, 0 noes.
All right. The bill passes. It goes on to calendar and rules. All right. Your next bill, Representative Martin, is item 8 on the agenda. We have a motion and a second. Please, any amendments on this bill?
No, sir.
Great. All right. Please cover your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is about wholesaling with regard to real estate transactions. This legislation defines a real estate transaction where a buyer enters into a contract with a seller to purchase real property and then assigns the buyer's equitable interest in real property to a subsequent purchaser for a higher price than the buyer paid for the real property. For buyers engaging in this activity, the following disclosures will be required. First of all, the nature of the buyer's equitable interest to subsequent purchasers, letting the subsequent purchaser know that they are not the actual owner of the property. Number 2, the buyer's intent to market its equitable interest prior to the execution of a contract. And finally, the effective date of any assignment of the buyer's interest in at least 3 business days prior to the effective date of any assignment. Why is this legislation necessary? Well, disclosures are essential in the context of wholesaling real estate property to ensure that consumers, whether they're buyers or sellers, have the necessary information to make informed decisions. Real estate transactions, especially wholesaling, can attract unscrupulous practices if transparency is lacking. And requiring these disclosures will help prevent fraud or deceptive practices by ensuring both parties are fully aware of a wholesaler's legal standing and intent. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I am stand ready for any question.
All right. That sounds like an exciting bill. Any questions? Seeing none, everyone ready to vote? All right. Let's open the board for voting. Everyone cast your vote. All right, I think we got one waiting to come up to the vote. Has everyone voted? I think so. So Madam Clerk, close the board and announce the results.
Mr. Chairman, you have 22 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, your bill goes on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Committee and Chair.
All right, I think we have Representative Alexander's going to be coming up next. That's item 4 on the agenda, bill number 713. So we have a motion and a second. Bill's ready to be discussed. Would you explain your bill?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Committee. As I explained last week, this.
Pardon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have 4 amendments traveling with this bill. Which ones do you want to take up?
We had Amendment 4359, and we would like to take up 5151.
All right. We have a motion, amendment 5151. We have and a second. All in favor of putting the amendment on the bill, say aye. Aye. All right. Any opposed? No. The amendment is now on the bill. Does the amendment make the bill?
Yes.
All right. Now explain the amended bill.
One of the changes originally made in the bill was to eliminate the memorial care and monument installation fee caps. This amendment is a result of robust conversations between Representative Hale with his concerns at our last committee, the monument builders, the Cemetery Association. In short, this amendment keeps the caps intact, but increases the base caps established in statute to 75 cents per square inch. As is true in current law, the fee is tied to the CPI and may be increased on an annual basis. This will allow cemeteries to keep up with the rapidly rising post-COVID cost and make the best business decisions for their particular cemetery. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Representative Hale, you're recognized for questions.
Representative Alexander, thank you so much for this bill, the work that's been put into this bill. A lady that I highly respect and was asked to sign on to this bill early on, had some issues last week. So let me first of all say thank you for working on this bill. To this committee, I had an issue last week that I felt was a consumer protection issue. This has been worked through this last week. And again, I say thank you for that. We are putting in a cap of 75 cents, which also has, and that's moving the cap that was set at 26 cents in statute some time ago. That was currently at 34 because of the increase. Now we're putting it at 75 cents, and then it would be inflationary. I'm at a good place with this because we are doing something that no state around us has done to protect the consumers. So with that, I just want to say thank you. And to the Cemetery Association, we've involved some conversation with the monument folks and different ones. We realize when we come to places like this, everybody may not be 100% on board, but this is at a good place. And so I ask this committee to vote favorably for this bill.
Thank you, Representative. I know Chairman Vaughn would have a great time with this grave subject. And so I'm sorry he's not here to carry the dialogue about it. So I think we have next up to Chairman Powers. All right. Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure I don't have a copy of the amendments. Does this still have the amendment that addressed my concern about the cause of action?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it traveled with it.
Thank you.
Representative Faison?
Question on the bill.
All right, we have a question on the bill. Any objections? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Madam Clerk, open the board for voting. Has everyone voted? If so, Madam Clerk, close the board.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 ayes, 0 noes, and 2 present not voting.
All right, the bill passes. It goes on to calendar and rules. Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
All right.
I
think we're
promise
coming-
not to let you down.
All right. We should have had more fun with that bill. Next, we're going to go back to item number 1 on the calendar. That's carried by Leader Lambert, House Bill 1376. We have a motion and a second on the bill. I think there are some amendments on the bill. Which amendment do you wish to place on the bill?
So, Mr. Chairman, I have 2 different amendments, and I think there's a late filed amendment that we potentially could take up afterwards. But to get the bill just in its proper posture, Amendment Code 3959 makes the bill.
And that's the late filed one, right?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. That in fact, I think is traveling through from the sub.
Okay.
Or from judiciary. excuse
We have
me.
a motion and a second. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. That amendment is now on the bill. If you'd like to explain that bill.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, if I may, I also have Amendment Coded 4939, which amends that amendment. And if we could take that one up, I would truly appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second on amendment 4939.
Yes, sir,
All
Mr.
in
Chairman.
favor, say aye. Aye. All right, that motion is there on the amendment on the bill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And if I may just describe kind of the posture where the bill is right now, and then I know there is a late filed amendment by Chairman Faison, and I want to be clear and concise. I have no objections to it being taken up. I may have just some slight objections to some of the language in it, but I understand the chairman is sick. The chairman would have filed that amendment. And so I know Chairman Faison is kind of stepping in because Chairman Vaughn is not here. So again, I just want to say to the committee, I personally have no objections to it at least being considered in a few minutes. But what this bill does as amended right now. So 2 years ago, we sought to regulate hemp-derived cannabinoids, okay? For 6 or 7 years, they have been sold in this state. And we were originally told in the state of Tennessee that we were legalizing hemp, that it was not intoxicating, that it was not marijuana. We created a legal distinction between hemp and marijuana. They did the same thing at the federal level. They said anything that's got less than 0.3% THC Delta 9, well, that's hemp, not marijuana. Well, guess what? There's Delta 8, there's Delta 10, there's THCA, there's THCP, there's THCO, and it'll all get you high. And that's exactly what the hemp industry has done ever since. They have continued to put products on the market that are intoxicating products. That's what they are. You see them in every convenience store, grocery store, hemp shop, and in Davidson County, right here where we stand, there are 555 current licenses or pending licenses for hemp stores. It's all over the place. So I have not been shy about the fact that I am not a big fan of these particular products. I don't use them, don't think folks should, but guess what? They're out there. So if they're going to be out there, we have liquor on the shelves, we have beer on the shelves, we have wine on the shelves. We have nicotine that's out there in the store, cigarettes and tobacco and everything else. These products should be regulated. They should be fairly regulated so that this industry can move forward. And the analogy I've used in other committees is if you buy a Sprite, you ought to get a Sprite. If you buy a beer, you should get a beer. If you buy a bottle of tequila, you should get a bottle of tequila. So what we've done is we have said these products in this bill as amended, these products will not be sold in a convenience store or a grocery store. I personally do not want to see in my community weed being sold right next to the eggs and the milk. I don't want kids to be able to go in to a place that is selling these particular types of intoxicating products. So they would be able to be sold in a liquor store that is 21 and up already or in a hemp store. And there will be licenses available for that. We're allowing ag to continue to regulate hemp growth. So if it's being grown out of the ground, ag continues to regulate that. But the retail and wholesale aspect of this, and we're allowing for vertical integration. You could be a grower, a wholesaler, and a retailer. But the retailer and wholesale part will be managed by the ABC. Those are the folks that already regulate intoxicating liquors, intoxicating substances, and they are very good at being able to regulate that in a fair way. The rest of this is literally just details on making sure that that is taxed, regulated, and managed in a way so that we don't have kids getting a hold of this stuff and so that adults that may use these products at least know what they're getting. It does include testing. It includes the ability to be able to ship out of state for some of our folks. That's in the amendment that I have. and it allows for testing in outside of state labs as long as they're authorized by the ABC. So I've tried very hard, even though it is a subject that, again, full disclosure, is not my favorite subject to work on. I have tried to work with everybody involved to just make sure that it is fairly regulated. The one bone of contention that I think will come up in the late filed amendment is THCA is currently being sold on the shelves. It looks like marijuana, it acts like marijuana, and when you light it and smoke it, it is marijuana. We never purposefully legalized marijuana, okay? But when THCA is lit, it is marijuana. It is a policy question for this committee to consider as to whether or not to let THCA continue to be sold and THCP or not. It is THCA when it's sitting there in a joint, and that's how they sell it in a lot of these stores. It is THCA. It is not marijuana. THC Delta 9. But the moment somebody takes a Bic lighter and lights that joint, it does convert into Delta 9 THC. It's just a policy position for y'all to determine in this committee which direction you want to go. Do you want to let THC continue to be sold, or is that a product that we're not comfortable being sold in this state? And Mr. Chairman, that's basically what the bill as amended does. And I know Chairman Faison has an amendment as well.
All right. We have several people want to talk, and we have some witnesses that have asked to testify. Let's go ahead and try to get our questions covered first, or?
Mr. Chairman, I have talked to some of the witnesses, and their testimony may change dramatically depending upon whether or not the amendment that Chairman Faison has goes on. So just for what it's worth, that may determine kind of whether or not they want to testify or what they testify to, quite frankly, because it does change the bill.
Chairman Faison, would you like to take up the untimely amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yes, sir, I do want to take the amendment up, but I think for purposes of understanding why I'm bringing this amendment on behalf of Chairman Vaughn also invited these guys to speak. So let's let them speak, and then we'll come back, take up the amendment, and see if the amendment pleases the committee, and then we'll go from there, if that's good with you, Mr. Chair.
That sounds very fair. All right, we have 4 people. I'm not sure they want to talk, come all together and just find a microphone. We have Matt Meeks, John Kearns, Philip Snow, and Devin Arcina. If they would come up and who are we? Representative Farmer? And Zachary, God.
No, that's great. Mr. Chairman, just for clarity of the committee, so this testimony, we're able to apply this to both the bill as it stands today and Chairman Faison's amendment. Can we get him to explain the amendment? Because I think there's some confusion what they're going to be speaking on, because if the amendment changes the bill, we need to understand the differences before they testify. Can we have him just give a brief explanation of the difference between the two?
Chairman.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And perfectly fine with me. Thank you, Deputy Speaker Zachary. So this amendment rewrites the bill only a few things.
We have a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't understand how we could be talking about amendment that's not properly before us. I think these people who have come to testify can testify, and they will be available to still answer questions if needed with this other amendment. Right now, I believe that the testimony and the conversation need to be on the amendment that's before us. So if we start dealing with other amendments that's not properly before us, we're going to be setting a dangerous precedence where other people don't want to do the same. So I think from a parliamentary perspective, should we be debating or talking about a bill or amendment that's not properly before us? That's my inquiry.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Representative Moon, do you have an opinion? I know you're a parliamentarian. Hate to put you on the spot, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I am not acting as a parliamentarian.
Well,
I can't, the code of ethics. Are we out of session? Are we out of?
No, we're still in session.
To Leader Camper's question, my thoughts would be, put the amendment, the time it takes to go through the proper procedure for consideration of untimely. If it passes, then bring the amendment, pass the amendment, and then discuss. Your thoughts on that, Leader Camper, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
I think that would be more appropriate, but based on what Chairman Faison asked early on, was for us to deal with this amendment and then deal with his amendment. We can have the clerk come in if we need to deal with the parliamentary situation that we're in at this point. I just think we need to be dealing with the amendment that's before us.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the bill sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I caused part of this problem. So let me, if I may, at least opine. Look, these are nice folks. I'm going to disagree with some of the stuff they say. I'm going to agree with some of this say. Might I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman, that you just hear them out and not get them caught up in parliamentary procedures? Just hear them out, ask them whatever questions you want to, and then we can either take the amendment up or not based on the information you have, if I may make the suggestion.
Let's do that. I'm going to gavel out a session and we're going to listen to our three speakers. We'll go from left to right, and please tell us who you are and who you're with, and tell us what you want to tell us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is John Kearns. I'm the co-founder of New Bloom Labs. Our laboratory specializes in testing hemp products for legal compliance and consumer safety. Our business is DEA registered. We hold a license for pharmacy research in Tennessee. We're registered with the Department of Agriculture for hemp-derived cannabinoid testing, and we're accredited as an ISO 17025 analytical testing facility. I urge the committee to oppose this bill in its current form. First, the bill would drastically change the definition of hemp that Congress set forth in the 2018 Farm Bill, creating a new kind of prohibition that criminalizes a common consumer choice, a choice that's federally legal, and a choice that's legal in the states that border ours. Banning THCA, as this bill does currently, would make it impossible to harvest hemp crops in Tennessee due to the latent concentrations of THCA that naturally exist in the plant. In fact, in recognizing this, the Congress and USDA have already established a very low tolerance for THCA in federal law. And of course, that threshold applies in Tennessee now. I want to assure the committee that I share the leader's concern for the safety of Tennesseans. I don't like seeing products that are irresponsibly marketed and distributed with unreasonably high concentrations or inaccurate labeling. Thankfully, though, we have the tools in Tennessee law today to protect Tennesseans from these illegal products. But these laws haven't even been in effect for 90 days. Simply enforcing current rules will answer the concerns that this bill raises and provide meaningful stability to an industry that has invested heavily to comply with these regulations. I'd like to stress that this industry is comprised entirely of small businesses, including my own. I, like many of my colleagues, prepared for new regulations in Tennessee with months of hard work. We built models, took loans, invested our savings, hired staff, trained staff, and we were ready and willing to become fully fledged licensees in the state's new regulatory system for Tennessee hemp. This legislation will upend all of that. It will be ruinous for many. It will certainly cost jobs. I'm particularly concerned about entering into another rulemaking process if this bill passes. Again, all the hard work that's already been done, the planning, the investing that many of us undertook and just concluded will begin again. And we'll all enter into a new period of uncertainty. So I'm really here to make a plea for the stability of our businesses. I urge the committee to vote down this bill as it currently stands and for our state to redouble its efforts to enforce current law, which has every tool it needs to rid our state of unsafe products. And again, I want to reiterate that I'm referring to the bill as it stands now. I'm fairly unfamiliar with the amendment, although I understand that it does some good things to address what I've just addressed here. But I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any question from the committee? Representative Hardaway?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for being here. One of your phrases was about federal law having a low tolerance. Further elaborate on that, please.
Yes, thank you. Federal law really has a particularly low tolerance for THCA. In fact, the 2018 Federal Farm Bill ensures that a combination of Delta-9 THC, which defines marijuana everywhere in America, and THCA must contain a concentration of less than 0.3% total THC before the plant is even harvested. That is a very low tolerance federally for THCA. It is the tolerance that we established in Tennessee when we established our hemp program under USDA guidance, and it stands today.
And when you allege that there's low or no enforcement, what's that based on?
Well, it's mostly based on timing. The hemp regulation bill passed in 2023. The rulemaking progress was long and drawn out. The enforcement of the bill happened in stages, the last of which occurred on December 26th of 2024. Again, not even 90 days ago. I think what we have here is an issue of timing. The Department of Agriculture, the Department of Revenue have barely had time really to even hit the ground running with many of the provisions of the original bill. And I would encourage that as a state, we really redouble our efforts to really to put in place what that bill intended. And again, with those tools, with those measures, we'd have the ability to get rid of products that are marketed inappropriately, marketed that are sold and they're not behind the counter. It allows us to get rid of products that haven't been tested yet.
All right, and when you say the Department of Ag is behind, this bill would transfer those responsibilities for manufacturing, production, and sale to the Department of Revenue and ABC, Alcohol and Alcoholic Beverage Commission. So will that help to bring that regulation up to full speed?
My concern in that scenario is, again, re-entering a rulemaking process that we all just concluded, that we all invested in, that we all put time in, that we all adapted our businesses to. So while the ABC isn't necessarily a completely inappropriate regulatory agency, we have a regulatory agency now that has the statutory mandate to regulate these products. And we just concluded a rulemaking process that would begin anew if this bill were to pass.
All right, just a statement, Mr. Chairman. I sat on GovOps, so when you say rulemaking and you don't like rulemaking, then I take offense. Rulemaking is necessary quite often in making sure that the legislative intent is carried out in the statutes that the Tennessee General Assembly passes. Thank you for sharing your information. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. We have some other questions, but I'm going to let the other two speakers talk, and then if there are questions, y'all can address whichever speaker you would like to. So, Madam, please announce yourself and who you're with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Devin Aracena, a Tennessee business owner and the founder of Canvas. We provide federally compliant hemp products throughout the state and nation. Our company serves hundreds of businesses and thousands of consumers. We are proud to be part of the Tennessee hemp industry that drives local commerce, strengthens supply chains, and contributes millions in tax revenue to Tennessee's economy. We agree with you on many pieces of this bill, Leader Lamberth. We oppose House Bill 1376, however, in its current form, because it creates market confusion for both producers and, most importantly, consumers. This bill restricts one of the purest and most natural forms of hemp, THCA, due to its potential to convert to Delta-9 THC, yet permits the same highly processed and more potent form of Delta-9 THC in other products like beverages. This double standard doesn't make sense as policy. This type of selective This type of selective regulation is a deviation from the current federal definition of hemp, creating an inconsistent framework that disadvantages Tennessee farmers, business owners, and the consumers who rely on these products. The concerns driving this bill, understandably, stem from bad actors selling illegal products that are already prohibited under existing law. Rather than shifting regulatory goalposts, again, the focus should be on strengthening actual enforcement to ensure compliance with the laws already in place. The demand for clean, safe hemp products is not going anywhere. For years, Tennessee consumers have relied on access to these products, and restricting them now would push sales to unregulated online markets and across state lines. This not only reduces Tennessee's ability to enforce safety standards, but also diverts valuable sales and tax revenue out of the state. Meanwhile, Tennessee is still in its early stages of implementing those regulations that took effect just months ago. Introducing these new restrictions so soon risks creating more confusion, unintended consequences, and more instability for businesses and consumers. Supply and demand don't disappear, they shift. THCA in its raw form is one of the most natural expressions of hemp. With proper regulation aligned with both the USDA cultivation standards, which again, just to state, is a total THC measured in the field and only in the field, and the 2018 Farm Bill definition of hemp, which is Delta 9, below 0.3%, it can be just as safe and compliant as the other product categories that are allowed in this bill, like beverages. I want to be clear, we do support you, Leader Lamberth, and we're advocating with you for right-sized regulation that prioritizes best practices and consumer safety. However, again, this bill in its current form deviates from federal law around hemp and contradicts the regulatory framework passed by the General Assembly just 2 years ago. Businesses like mine have made significant investments based on those regulations, and the industry has spent the last year intensely preparing to operate under them. We simply need more time here to assess before we refine. Rather than rushing into these new restrictions, I urge this committee to pause, please, with us, allow for more data collection, enforce our existing laws, and engage with actual industry stakeholders to craft responsible policies. A collaborative approach will protect consumers while maintaining a fair legal market that benefits Tennessee's economy. Thank you for giving us a chance to speak with you today.
Very good. Our next guest is
Matthew Minks. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. I'm going to speak on the behalf of small business owners in Tennessee. I myself am a small business owner. I'm the CEO of Rooted Supply Company, DBA Emerald Heart, as well as the president of the Tennessee Growers Coalition. I'm going to keep this short. This creates a huge financial burden on my business and most businesses that I know that operate in this sector. $750,000 to secure funds to maintain a license from the ABC is far too much of a burden. The necessity to require separate locations for vertical integration, where you have a warehouse, you have a manufacturing facility, you have a brick and mortar retail. They cannot be in the same location. And honestly, myself, I operate vertically integrated within the same location that is ample square footage to be able to maintain this safely. I don't see many business owners that own their own buildings, much less have the ability to secure $750,000 as well as another lease ancillary to that. There's several other things about this bill that are a problem, but I do agree with regulatory standpoints. THCP has a greater affinity for your receptors than Delta 9 does. I do agree that THCP is something that should not be in our consumers, regular marketplace, as well as hexahydrocannabinol having the similar amount. Regardless of whether THCA decarboxylates to Delta 9 THC does not change the fact that Tennessee Department of Agriculture already has a regulatory framework in place to regulate these intoxicating cannabinoids. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. I think that concludes the testimony. Questions from any members to our guests? Representative Marsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know really what I'm asking, but whoever wants to answer it, can you put these hemp products in the vaping world? And if someone is does a drug test, does hemp show up as a positive?
Yes, some of these products will show up on a drug test, but what this bill is doing is it's choosing kind of winners and losers amongst the product categories. So it's eliminating one product category while leaving others, and those others will still show up on a drug analysis test.
Representative Morris?
And I've gotten several calls from our school superintendents and school principals about we've got to stop all of this coming into our schools. It's disrupting schools, it's ruining students' lives, and that's what I'm about today. I want to stop that from happening in our schools.
I completely agree with you. I have 2 children. That's not where our argument is. Enforcement of regulation will help us accomplish that, and we have that regulation in place already.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Representative Lafferty.
Thank you, Chairman. First gentleman, Mr. Kearns, you had mentioned that you felt, I think I've got this right, you'd mentioned that you thought that the current rules would suffice for what the bill was trying to achieve. Could you elaborate on that for me, please?
Well, current law does a lot. Current law keeps, and to address something that just came up, current law disallows Tennesseans under 21 to access these products. Current law has concentration caps. That means that we can't, the industry can't manufacture and sell products that go over a certain concentration. All the cannabinoids that we've discussed here today are subject to those caps. Child-proof containers. You have to sell these products behind a counter in Tennessee now. All of these, and importantly, I run a testing lab. All of these products have to be screened for toxins. That rule has only been in effect since December 26th. The industry hasn't had time to test all of its products and get them redeployed out into the retail space. That takes time. There's an implementation period that we need to be wary of in Tennessee. And I can tell you, the industry is responding. The industry is certainly responding. But I do think that our current regulatory agencies need to be conducting the inspections that would remove product that is patently illegal and flies in the face of current law.
Follow-up question?
Thank you for that. And I'm sorry I missed your name here to my right. I'm sorry? Matthew Minks. For you, sir, you had mentioned the different locations for production and distribution and then retail.
Yes, sir.
Right now, if I'm correct, we're dealing with an industry that's largely in its infancy in this state, mostly mom and pops. There will come a time where the bigger corporations, which the lady in the middle may be part of, will come in here and start buying these businesses up. For purposes of getting your business up off the ground, would you be able to survive if you had to separate out locations?
I would believe so, if only we had a little bit better of banking to rely on. It's not quite as bad as other cannabis markets in the United States where we cannot secure as much banking, but there is still very much shied upon. We're not going to be able to secure loans. So it depends on which kind of funds would be needed to prove this $750,000 specifically.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Next up, Representative Cochran. Please. Okay, all right. Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've got a couple of questions, and feel free to answer for whomever. We talked about picking winners and losers. I'm concerned we're picking winners and losers between businesses here. I mean, the way that this contradicts federal law and allows out-of-state companies to sell within Tennessee potentially is a real concern of mine. I think we're hitting everybody, the farmers, the wholesalers, retailers, and causing confusion for the consumers. Look, we all support regulation. We all think that's appropriate. We want to keep it out of hands of children, and we want to make sure that it's compliant within the limits as established by the law. I'm confused as to why we're reinventing the wheel. You know, other states have done this. We just, in the last year, that just went into effect, passed a set of regulations, some of which are under stay by court order as of right now. I can't imagine trying to run a business with such fluctuation with regulatory, we talk a lot about on this committee about, protecting consumers, but also staying hands off of businesses as much as possible unless necessary. We are getting this wrapped around the axle, in my opinion, for everybody. And so if you could speak to the problems, whether they exist or not, I mean, in your opinion, how this contradicts the Farm Bill and federal law, and what type of problems that will or will not create for consumers or the industry.
Well, I want to make sure that we're kind of all reading from the same page. And I understand, there's been a lot of updates in the last 24 hours. So, but to speak to federal law says that if you register a hemp crop, either through the USDA or the state, you can't harvest it unless that crop has a concentration of less than 0.3% total THC. After that plant is harvested, the standard becomes the prevailing standard in federal law and in state law here today gives 0.3% Delta 9 THC. So the harvest rule has the effect of generally lowering the concentrations of hemp-derived cannabinoid products all the way down the supply chain. It works as designed if producers are compliant and if producers are compelled to operate compliantly by the regulatory agencies.
Mr. Meeks.
Also, with federal law, we have the PACT Act in place, which prevents shipping of vapable or smokable products. This bill seeks to enforce that we may not be able to ship anything anywhere, essentially, as long as it is an HDCP, as described. Currently, the PACT Act does not seem to be enforceable. I'm informed by my customers that they regularly order from out of state, and it consumes a large part of the market currently.
We're going to run out of time here. I'm going to go back in session. We can take up any other questions to the sponsor. So without objection, we're back in session. And I think we need to recognize.
My name is Jeremy Faison.
I'm getting brain. Thank you, Chairman, Leader Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Thank you for your indulgences. And so on behalf of our illustrious Chairman, Kevin Vaughn, I do offer this amendment with a drafting code 5181.
All right, without objection, we'll be taking up the untimely filed amendment. All right. We have objection, so we're going to put the untimely filed amendment on the board for a vote.
We got to move to consider.
That's what he's voting on.
All right.
Yeah. Right, but is that?
We have a motion to consider the untimely filed amendment number
518.
wherever it is.
5181.
5181. Thank you. All right. Have a motion. We have a second on the. Second. All right. We have a motion second on the untimely filed amendment to consider the untimely filed amendment. All right. Let's call the vote. Everybody ready to vote on the taking up the untimely filed amendment for consideration? Madam Clerk, would you open the board? Has everyone voted? Anyone wants to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please close the board and announce the results.
Mr. Chairman, you have 15 ayes, 4 noes, and 1 present not voting.
Thank you. The untimely filed amendment is now on the bill or taken.
Now we got to, yeah.
We're now considering the untimely filed amendment. All right, we have a motion and a second on amendment 5181. All in favor of putting that amendment on the bill, say aye.
Hang on. Whatever.
I'll back up. Chairman Faison, would you like to explain the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee, I'm sure that Chairman Vaughn would be very pleased with how the majority of you voted just now. So members, this amendment does rewrite the bill, but not as what you would think. It only does three main things, and I will show you those three main things. First of all, the bill, and you heard one of the testifiers a minute ago talking about how he feels like the bill, as it's currently written, doesn't marry up with federal law. So the first main thing that this bill does is we marry up with what the USDA regulations are when it deals with hemp. And any of the products that are sold in the state of Tennessee under this law, if we pass this amendment, would have to marry up with the federal USDA regulations. And any of the hemp products that were used to create whatever it is that we're selling would have to marry with that. That's the first main thing. The second thing it does is it allows the natural form of the hemp product to be used. And I know people say, well, Jeremy, that's the smokable or well, that's the flower. But I would like to remind the committee, when you say the natural form, that's the cleanest form. Under Leader Lambert's bill, it still has the same THC, but what his bill would allow, but deny, his bill would allow the gummies, the drinks, the candy, all the other stuff that would go in at the same level of THC. What I'm doing is saying, I believe, and Chairman Vaughn believes, that if you can use all the stuff that you've distilled down or you've compounded in whatever form or modality that you want to use in a vape pen, Speaker Marsh, you all should be able to use the same. That's a fair market practice, and it's the cleanest form. Then lastly, the bill, this amendment does allow synthetics. And I know when I say synthetics, that makes people nervous, but let me explain why that's important. You see all those sheriffs sitting out there, they probably don't like any of this. If we're honest with each other, they would look at them shaking their head. They want it gone. The beautiful thing about Leader Lambert's bill, one of the reasons that I immediately said, Lambert, I support your bill, is because it creates a regulatory framework that they know what is the difference. Regardless if we like it or not, synthetics are here. His bill, with my amendment, would allow them to recognize immediately what is a good synthetic and what is not, because the ABC would regulate it. It only would be at a store that you have to be 21 or older to get to it. And this is going to hurt your feelings. I don't know if you're paying attention, but they're bringing truckloads of black market stuff into the state of Tennessee all the time. If we pass the bill currently as it is, that will increase that black market, and they will have struggle to be able to combat that at all. If you pass my amendment, that will make sure we understand what synthetics, such as what's in a vape, are legal and what are not. They will automatically know everything that the ABC says is legal. If we don't do that, the black market is going to flourish, and our law enforcement will struggle to ever find true guidance on how to deal with that. So that's the three main things that my amendment does. I think if you ask any of the ones who testified a minute ago, they like aspects of the bill. They love what I'm doing right here. And I think it's the best way moving forward in the state.
Thank you, Leader, for that explanation. Representative Zachary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Faison, does the amendment allow for THCA? As Leader Lambert described, my greatest concern and my concern with the amendment is it allows for continued THCA, which is, as Leader Lambert said, when it's heated and smoked, it's basically marijuana. I'm adamantly opposed to it, and my sheriff's opposed to it. So does the amendment that you provide continue to allow for THCA?
Yes. Leader?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy Speaker Zachary, this does not allow for any higher potency THC than what his bill does. My amendment doesn't allow it. It adds one modality to it. He allows vaping, he allows gummies, he allows everything else at that level after it's distilled and compounded. This does not increase that in it. It just brings in the fact that you can have a pure form of what he's doing. Otherwise, that's not pure.
Any follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess my question then would be for the sponsor of the bill. So it's my understanding, and I appreciate the answer in terms of the technicality, but your bill, as it is in front of us, does not allow for THCA. The amendment does. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is the biggest difference between the two. Is it's prohibited THCA especially, I mean, other than just trace amounts. I mean, the bill does allow for trace amounts of THCA, but nothing you could get high on, whereas the amendment does allow for, as the chairman described, a THCA that if lit, then turns into marijuana and definitely has an intoxicating effect, just as the gummies or the drinks or the other do. But the problem for our law enforcement officers, and my Sheriff Eric Craddock is here, who with all due respect to everyone else that's here wearing a badge, he's the best sheriff in the great state of Tennessee. Sorry, guys. But here's, I know there's a lot of objection there. But look, when they pull over a car and they've got a bag of joints in the car, if somebody does, their deputies cannot tell by looking at that stuff whether it's THCA or marijuana. That's a problem. If there's a canned beverage that has THC product in it and it's been properly tested and properly labeled, they know that that's a canned beverage that, yes, potentially you could get intoxicated on, but they know exactly what it is. And it does separate the wheat from the chaff. And again, I respect my friend from Cotton County, and he has, for years, we have had this discussion back and forth as to whether or not you should be able to smoke it if you got it, so to speak. And so with this, the bill bans THCA, the amendment allows for THCA. It's just a policy decision. It's whether you want to allow that one or don't want to allow that one. Mr. Chairman, I think I'm being fair there. I hope I am.
Leader?
I would remind the committee under Leader Lambert's current bill, Delta 10 joints are still allowed. He's not denying that. So if that's our concern, he's not denying that. And then finally, under his bill, when it's distilled, what he's allowing under his bill, when it's distilled or compounded, it still increases to the same level of intoxicity of what my amendment would do.
Thank you. I think next up, Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think the very important distinction, and that I think the leader laid out clearly, and I think it's the most effective way to have stated it, is currently if law enforcement pulls someone over and they see a THC product in a can or a bag of gummies, most likely that's a legal product. That is something that was purchased legally. There is no way for them to make that distinction between marijuana and THCA, which is honestly the first time that I saw this was about 2 weekends ago. I went into a gas station and they were in a Shell station. They were selling buds that looked like just marijuana buds. And I understand that it may be the most natural form. That's fine, but it's still getting you high. The same way as illegal marijuana gets you high. And there's no way for law enforcement to make that distinction. Now I know the amendment still moves that to liquor stores and gets it out of the gas station. That's fine. But still, if I go to a liquor store and I purchase that bud, there is no way for law enforcement to tell, is that a legal bud of marijuana? Was that joint rolled with legal marijuana or illegal marijuana? And as opposed to the derivatives that are going to be in a can or a gummy, I still don't love that either. Hey, I'd come after that too, by the way. But this neither the amendment nor the bill touch on that. But in the future, I'll be fine taking that away also. But at least in the interim, we can go after what is clearly just marijuana. I mean, it may have a different name, but it gets you just as high. And so that's why I'm opposed to the amendment, and I'm for the bill in its original form.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Chairman Farmer. Leader Farmer. God. Faison. God, I want to get it right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I would remind you, and to my friend from McMinn County, his bill still allows for Delta 8 and Delta 10 joints. So you're thinking that you're voting for something to get rid of this joints, and they're still going to be allowed. But the beautiful thing about the bill is they won't be at your gas station. We passed this bill, and it'll be in a liquor store or a hemp store. But I don't want y'all to ignorantly think that we're doing away with joints. That we're not. So just making sure y'all understand that.
Thank you. Representative Lynn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This question is for Leader Lambert. Leader Lambert, I have so much respect for you. You are a man of law and order and always justice. I can't imagine that you would bring us a bill that would make the problems worse, because I can tell you in my district, this problem is out of control, absolutely out of control. In fact, my husband had an employee who worked part-time at one of these smoke shops. The stories he told us, it is out of control. Plus, you're seeing the effects on young people. And there's a new thing coming along. We'll probably have to deal with this at some time, called popcorn lung, and an accountant who works for me. His granddaughter was in the hospital last weekend. This girl is 22 years old. She's going to have to carry an oxygen tank for the rest of her life. She was on a respirator for days. And this is all from these vaping products. It's out of control. Leader Lamberth, can you assure us? I think having ABC handle this is a great idea. I think maybe putting a stamp on these products to show that they were third-party lab tested before they're sold is a great idea. I'm not sure if your bill does that, but can you tell us how your bill is going to make this a better atmosphere than what's been going on?
It does all of that. It does all of the stuff that they talked about with testing and labeling and everything else, and making sure this is only sold in a hemp shop or a liquor store because they're intoxicating products. And my only ask of the committee today, I know I've taken up an enormous amount of your time today, is that y'all would vote on this today. I mean, the amendment is clear. It's, do you want to allow THCA or not? I know it's a 29-page amendment, but the chairman described it well. It's really a policy decision. Do you want to allow that stuff or not? Once you get past that, I would just ask to support my bill for all the reasons you just said. This is proliferating out there in places that should not be selling extremely intoxicating substances. So that would be my ask today, is that y'all would just decide on the amendment one way or the other. But the regulatory framework of this is so important to the safety of our state going forward. The prime bill. And look, I wouldn't have brought a bill except for folks within the hemp industry sued us in the state of Tennessee from the bill 2 years ago. And as the chairman from Davidson County said, that's on hold now. Several of the tenets of that bill by a national judge who said that's on hold till June. So I wouldn't be standing here if we didn't have lawsuits out there. And there's at least two different law enforcement agencies that have been sued for just doing their job because they couldn't tell the difference between hemp and marijuana. So I think we need the underlying bill.
We have a question on the amendment. We're running up to some hard times, so we are going to go ahead and vote now on taking up Amendment 5181. So if Madam Clerk would. All right, I don't.
Vote on previous question.
We're going to vote on the previous question then. So all in favor of taking up the amendment, let's open up the vote for the previous question then. Is the board vote in favor of yes for taking up the amendment or the previous question? Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Mr. Chairman, you have 13 ayes, 9 noes.
All right. The motion to take up Amendment 5181 passes. So now we're taking up the amendment. There's a question on the bill. So let's vote on the amendment 5181. So Madam Clerk, would you open the board for the voting? This is only a amendment 5181. Has everyone voted? Madam Clerk, would you please announce the results?
Mr. Chairman, you have 13 ayes, 7 noes, and 2 present, all voting.
All right. The amendment has now been placed on the bill. Sponsor for the time, do you have anything else to say on the bill?
Nope, Mr. Chairman, I was just hoping y'all vote on the bill. It's an extremely important bill.
Representative Boyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And sponsor, I just want to tell you, I appreciate this bill. I know you put a lot of work into it. And I concur with you that I think agriculture is probably not the best, most suitable agency to regulate this. I think the ABC, and we all know, I think we can all agree that this is the sale of Delta hemp products is getting a little bit out of control. Nobody understands what's going on. And I think the ABC has a good track record, and I think they can handle this. And so I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to there being some stronger guardrails in place for Tennesseans. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Clements?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question goes to, I mean, hemp is an ag product. So what's the thinking by taking it away from the Department of Ag on the fact that they just, they evidenced last year when we dealt with all this, that Hatcher didn't want to have anything to do with it. So now we're putting it over to the ABC, which is a liquor, alcohol-based enforcement agency.
Leader?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, it's intoxicating substances. People get high on this every day, and ABC handles intoxicating substances. Ag handles stuff that's being grown up out of the ground, and they do a great job of that. And so the retail enforcement of this just fits better under ABC. They know how to do this best. And so that, just as Chairman Boyd just said, not a knock on ag, they're still going to regulate the growing of hemp. It's just all these retail establishments look and act more like liquor stores. And so that's what ABC is good at enforcing.
Thank you. Representative Zachary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move previous question.
Previous question been called. Seeing no objections, we're going to vote on the bill as amended. So Madam Clerk, will you please open the board for voting? And we'll go from here.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you announce the vote?
Mr. Chairman, you have 18 ayes, 2 noes, and 2 present, all voting.
All right, a bill, what's the bill number again? Bill 1376 as amended. There goes on to government ops. Thank you, Leader, for putting up with me as chairman today, and I appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you did a fantastic job subbing in there at the last minute. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry to take up everybody's time.
All right, we have 3 minutes to take up Chairman Power's bill, so let's try to get it covered. Chairman, would you please, do we have a motion and a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Bill in proper form. Please summarize the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 775 proposes to raise the acquisition charge for B loans from 10 to 12.5%, and the existing rate for B loans from the bracket to 36%. The last increase on these were 2012 and 2017 for the Part A. The increase will support improved services and access for credit for underserved and unbanked populations. It also increases available interest rates, enabling more loan officers to previously ineligible customers. The bill does not raise the rate for existing customers and will help provide more loan opportunities to customers. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any
from the committee.
questions?
I renew my motion. Yeah.
Leader Lafferty?
Thank you, Chairman. I struggle a little bit with this. I'm sorry we didn't talk before, and I'm not the strongest math brain in the room. If costs are going up on everything else and everything's tied to a percentage, then doesn't the percentage automatically increase the profits as the cost of lending goes up, as the cost of borrowing goes up? And I guess what I'm asking is, aren't they still making more money even without the price of or the interest rate going higher?
Chairman Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The interest rate, one thing it will do is people that are not eligible for interest because of the credit, because of the ability to pay, and this raises that rate for them, so it'll create more eligible customers for those type of loans, because right now they're probably ineligible, but the higher rate of default and everything, and the higher rate of doing business is the reason for the increase. You know, to be honest with you, this came through a few years ago, and I thought, why do we even have a bracket? Why are we limiting it? Why would it just be the free market that did that? But this is part of the statute, and we have to go back and raise from time to time. Like I said, 2012, we have to raise those rates to allow the cost of doing business and to create more eligible customers.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Don't see any other questions. Let's vote on the bill. Madam Clerk, would you open up the board?
Probably lost a lot of people.
Will everyone cast their vote? I forgot what bill we're on. Oh. Has everyone cast their vote? Looks like we're missing some people. Madam Clerk, would you announce the vote?
Mr. Chairman, you have 10 ayes, 4 noes.
All right. The motion, the bill passes. Bill 775 goes on to calendar and rules.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
All right, we're out of time. We're going to roll all the other bills to the next calendar. And sorry, Chairman Boyd, you'll be here next week. Thank y'all for everyone coming today. And again, thank you for indulging me. Thank you. Bye now. Huh? All right, we're done.
Good job.
Oh, no, man, that was brutal.